Good afternoon and good morning to everyone from the campus of Notre Dame, depending on where you're joining us from. It's a cold, overcast day on campus. The South Bend climbs have moved in. The wind chill factor right now is about 13 degrees and dropping. The wind chill factor by tomorrow morning should be about 5 degrees. So students will be walking briskly to classes and to other gatherings. It reminds me of my wife Carmen. I know many of you know her and met her over the years. Is from Brazil, and when we used to talk about the wind chill factor, she thought that everybody was saying the windshield factor, and it wasn't until many years in our marriage that I discovered and I had to correct her that it's wind chill, not windshield. God only knows what the wind is like on your windshield when you're driving fast. But we've got that clarified for her. So it's cold here on campus. We have been working diligently with our students last week and now tomorrow with our faculty and staff on providing COVID boosters for everyone. And that is something that we are really excited about. We think it's the best way to protect the campus community from the contagious nature of the Omicron virus and variant. And things seem to be going really well. Our goal is to get over 90% of the group boosted, and that they're going to upload that, and then we can relax some of the mask requirements. It's my distinct honor and pleasure to introduce to you today a close coworker, a classmate, an outstanding leader in the history of Notre Dame, and also a very close friend, Dolly Duffy. Dolly's a 1984 graduate. She is the executive director of the Notre Dame Alumni Association, a huge job, maybe the one position that you could almost consider as an elective office, because so many alumni, parents, and friends take ownership of this role. She's also the Associate Vice President for University Relations. And in this role, Dolly oversees the leadership of our over 150,000 living alumni, and then the even more voluminous number of parents and friends that are in that group. And we're going to talk more about the scope of those responsibilities. Dolly and her wonderful husband, Dan, have 5 children, Riley, Maggie, Liam, Kieran, and Flannery. So just an absolutely beautiful family. So Dolly, thanks so much for
Hello, thanks. It's so good to be here.
Fantastic. So tell us a little bit about where you grew up. Now, I know a little bit about this, but so if you don't tell us all, I'm going to keep peppering you with additional questions. But tell us about where you grew up and what it was like growing up, and then how you found your unlikely way to Notre Dame.
Absolutely. And first of all, the idea that this might be close to being an elected position, thank God it's not, because I'm telling you, every once in a while, I'm thinking that I might not get reelected. But it's I love what I do, and I'm so happy to be here. I grew up in rural South Dakota. I like to say it's a bit of a dusty cowboy and Indian town, a town of 1,700, and not far from where my grandmother homesteaded at the turn of the century when she came from Bantry Bay, Ireland. To the middle of South Dakota as a single woman. She homesteaded. And so I went to a public high school because there were only public high schools. My graduating class was 47. And all 4 of my grandparents were born in Ireland. And the reason that that's significant is that we talked a lot about our Irish heritage growing up. It was a big deal. We had a bit of the rural Irish and the urban Irish because my mother grew up in Queens. And married my dad and moved to what she often referred to as this godforsaken place. And so that's where I grew up. And we talked about our Irish heritage. And interestingly enough, we talked about Notre Dame, and not as a school that we would go to, but just as the Mecca for anybody who's Irish. And when it came time for me to think about college, I applied to Notre Dame.
That's amazing. Now, having visited Fort Pierre, where, you grew up, that little town, for your dad's funeral. And I know that, it was a couple of years ago, I think, that both your
Yeah.
mom and dad died about a month apart. You grew up, and I knew you came from a modest background. And as you know, you've heard me say, I didn't realize, how poor the town was and how many people, all the kids that you were able to cram into such a small house. I kind of found my mouth fall agape and was like, wow. And I'll never forget your younger sister who followed you to Notre Dame. She pulled me aside and said, she could tell I was looking in amazement, and said, pretty amazing that Notre Dame would take a chance on two girls from Fort Pierre. So tell us a little bit more about that transition.
Yeah. So, it was interesting. When I came to Notre Dame, I had never set foot on the campus. And I got in and my dad said, you have to make a decision sight unseen because we can't afford to go out and visit. Really, we can't afford for you to go.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, if you remember, there really was not a lot of financial aid.
Right.
And I said, having really no idea what I was saying, I said, Dad, just let me go for 1 year and then I'll come home. I need to go for 1 year so that I can know what it's about, what this place called Notre Dame is all about. And then I'll come home. Of course, I look back now and I can barely stop laughing at myself that I actually thought I'd go for a year and that anybody would have pried me out of this school. And thanks to Father Joe Carey, and among others, who made it a point that I got to stay at Notre Dame for all of those years and graduate. And it was it was as if I was destined to take this job because I turned to my first year roommate, Jamie Kimmel Eifert. And I said, come on, Jamie, let's go. We're going to meet everyone in the freshman class. And then we set out to do it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have it's an amazing story, and I have the privilege of being your classmate. So from 1980 to 1984, you sucked the bone marrow out of this Notre Dame experience. I mean, you devoured it. But tell us a little bit more about what those 4 years were like for you, and how that led you, forward, and how transformative it was for you, those 4 years.
Yeah, you think about the fact that our freshman class, Lou, was the same size as the town I grew up in. But having been in Fort Pierre, very different when it comes to the surroundings, the people, all of it. And I remember, I probably shouldn't make fun of myself, but I will because I'm a pretty easy target. I came back from Christmas and I was with a group of people and we were talking about what we did over Christmas. And one of the young women said, my dad got my mom a BMW for Christmas. Now I'm 19 years old. And I said, what's a BMW? And they all had this nervous laugh, like maybe she's serious. And they said, it's a car. I said, it must be a nice car. I've never heard of it. And so I think about the exposure and all of the things I got to do, all of the people that took me in, all the families that came back to campus and took me out for dinner, and to nice restaurants that I'd never been to. People were good, and I loved it. I loved everything about Notre Dame, and it was really a pretty glorious 4 years.
Yeah. I remember, going back and loving everything about your family and about your roots. And you have a tradition that I think struck us all that came from afar to your parents' funerals, that you as a family, after the Mass and that small, humble church with a lot of Native American, statuary and everything else, you go to the cemetery and tell them what you do that's distinct as a family at the end of the committal service.
So we actually bury our own. And after my brother died a few years before my parents, very unexpectedly, that's when the tradition started. And we literally don't even use the mechanism. We lower the casket with ropes down into the ground. And then we all take turns with the shovel. And we invite everyone else. And part of it came out of a conversation that we had, how hard it is to leave out on the prairie, up on the side of this hill, this small cemetery, Scotty Phillips Cemetery is what it's called, and to walk away with the casket still above ground. And so we don't leave until the last bit of dirt is put in.
Yeah.
And it's really, it probably makes people uncomfortable at first, but it's incredibly cathartic.
Yeah. Let me tell you, it's a simple but a very powerful thing to witness and then to participate in. Picking up the few shovels there and adding some dirt on to bury that loved one. So tell me, you graduate from Notre Dame in 1984. Where do you go? What do you do next?
So just a reminder, Lou, you probably remember this, but you might not. Somewhere I have a picture of the two of us at baccalaureate mass, because you and I were the two readers at that mass. And imagine my mom and dad coming to campus for graduation. And my mom thought she died and gone to heaven because I was up on the altar at that mass with 200 priests, it felt like, and you. And it was really powerful. So
I remember that so well, Dolly, that I got up and I think nervously in the middle of the basketball auditorium at the time in the Joyce Center. I remember getting up and saying, I think I did the second reading. So I said something like a reading of the letter to Paul from the Philippians. So my family ridiculed me that the Philippians were writing to Paul versus the other. So I screwed up my prepositions.
I never remembered that. So I only remember that you did it perfectly.
So yeah, what do you do after?
So I graduated and I took a job working as a press secretary for a congressman in Washington who was on the House side for a couple of years. I won't talk about the politics of it or who or anything else, but it was 2 years there, and I loved DC. I loved being there. And I didn't stay longer because my heart was somewhere else, and I was dating the person that's now my husband, and I had to figure this relationship out. So I left Washington to go to Kansas City, and fortunately it worked out. And
then you and your husband began a company together. Tell us a little bit about that, because I know you were so generous giving back some products from that company to Notre Dame.
Yeah, it was, I knew nothing about business, but Dan always wanted to own his own business. Yeah. And neither of us came from much. So it was kind of a hard-earned thing in a company we ran together for 18 years. And I might add, and we stayed married, which is amazing, working together for 18 years. And I can hear some people laughing on the other end. And so it was a company that had a number of different divisions, but the one that we really focused on was we designed and then ultimately imported, after we did our own manufacturing, and warehoused and put corporate logos on all different kinds of sport bags, tote bags, luggage, desk folders, coolers, things like that. It was great fun. We just had such a great time. And throughout all of it, we had the 5 children, so they kind of, were just down the street from it. It was definitely part of the family.
So what brought you back to Notre Dame? And you've been at Notre Dame now 13 years working in the Alumni Association, 3 years apprenticing under the legendary Chuck Lennon, God rest his soul, and then 10 years now, believe it or not, a decade as executive director of, as you always say, your Notre Dame Alumni Association.
Yep. I always remind people it's theirs. It's their association. What brought me back was you, to be quite honest. You called me first and you said, just hear me out. And you had a great pitch, and you said the timing's right for your children. Your youngest is going into kindergarten. Your oldest will be a freshman in high school. This will be a good place for them. And then Chuck Lennon called, and in the end, it was a great move. And what I will say was a huge sacrifice for my husband, who said, "Hey, you moved a couple times for me. Now it's my turn to move for you." And so I think we should make this move and do this.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, Dolly, you were, among the pioneers of women. When you started here in 1980, Notre Dame had only been co-ed for 8 years in essence, at least at the undergraduate level. And I don't know what the percentage of women were when we began, but I think it was somewhere in the 20 percentile range or so. And we are celebrating this year the 50th anniversary in 2022 of women undergraduate students at Notre Dame. What does that mean for you personally? And what are some of the events that are being planned?
I'll start with not giving myself credit for being a pioneer. And because I think that there's a group of women that came before me that were the true pioneers. It was that first class and that second class who came when it was really hard. And people didn't want women here yet. Father Ted did. But there were a lot of people that it took a little bit longer. And so I have a great deal of admiration for the women that came before me,
Mm-hmm.
who came onto this campus and were incredibly brave souls. And so I would have been the next round, which wasn't nearly as hard.
Mm-hmm.
And plus, I grew up in a family with one sister and four brothers, and that was a little like the ratio when I got here. So it felt natural. It never didn't feel like a welcoming place for a woman in 1980. And so that's why I say I was in the second round. And now it's hard to believe 50 years. It's so exciting that we're going to have this huge celebration, and we're going to couple it with reunion. So we'll have the reunion going on campus, and simultaneously we will have this 50-year anniversary beginning on Thursday night with a big celebration. And then there'll be some overlap all throughout the weekend for all of the women and men who come back to celebrate the 50 year. And we'll have academic sessions. We'll have all kinds of things. And that's really just the crux of that weekend. But the university is looking at this as a broader celebration. And so all throughout the spring, the faculty, staff, students will all be involved in this celebration to make sure that everyone can play a part in this momentous occasion.
So in this case, in a sense, everybody will be invited back who wants to come back for reunion weekend to participate in the 50th anniversary as well, right?
Yeah.
So it won't just be the 5-year increments of classes.
But we will have the 5-year increments of classes, and we will not deviate from that model where those classes really get to come back together and bond. And pre-COVID, it's interesting as people talk about young alumni and are they really tied back to their schools? Do they really want to be alums? Do they want to be a part of it? And I would say at Notre Dame, it is that and more. And so for the 5 years pre-COVID, our 5-year class broke a record every single year of the year before in the number of students that came back or the number of alums that came back to celebrate their 5-year. It's so much fun. Let me just say, I'll never forget going over to North Dining Hall where all of the 5-year, and they encompassed all of it because there were 500 and some plus their guests. And it was palpable. Like you walk in, there's these young people and this energy, and it's like the whole room was bouncing. It's so much fun to have our young alums come back.
That certainly augurs hope for the future. I hear it said all the time that Notre Dame's Alumni Association is unrivaled, that the Notre Dame Alumni Network is one of the great assets and distinctive gifts that we call the Notre Dame family, and people feel the sense of belonging for life. You hear the old adage, you're not making a 4-year decision when you choose to come here, you're making a 64-year decision. What makes the Notre Dame Alumni Association distinct in your estimation?
Oh, how much time do we have? It begins with an incredible product, right? It begins with our alumni. And let me say, in this case, we're talking about alumni, but they are supplemented by parents and by incredible friends of the university. And so we start there where people constantly say, what can I do? How can I do more? How do you need me? I'm yours. Whatever it is, the challenge is finding enough opportunities for all that want to do that. And so I went to my first meeting of a group of private colleges and universities executive directors, right? And knowing that I am standing on Chuck Lennon's shoulders, right? He built this world class alumni association, and now I get to add to it. And so I know where this all began. And so thank you to if any of the Lennon family is there, thanks for giving your dad to this university for so long and allowing him to do what he did so well. And so I went to this first meeting, and a couple of executive directors said, we just want your alumni. And I was kind of uneasy. And I said, what do you mean? And they said, so many of us are just trying to get our alumni interested in the institution, interested in what we're doing, interested in programming, whatever it would be. You don't have that problem. Mm-hmm. You have them in spades. And so our work is very different from yours. And I thought that was so fascinating. And it's true. Now that the time has borne that out, that we have amazing alums that want to do so much.
So one of the distinguishing characteristics seems to be the club structure. I hear that it's unrivaled. Tell us a little bit about the club structure and why they are not called alumni clubs.
Right, because they're called Notre Dame clubs, because if you look around the country, around the world, we have clubs that have been run for a decade by somebody who did not graduate from Notre Dame. And we are so blessed by that. The Gettysburg Club is often the one that I talk about, because about 90% of that club is all non-alums, but they're passionate about Notre Dame, and they give back in the name of Notre Dame, and they do so much for this institution, and they come back to campus. So that's why we call them Notre Dame clubs and not alumni clubs. There are about 220 domestically, roughly 50 international clubs all over, and it's more than twice the next size down of any institution. And we are so we prize that so much, because can I talk about another? Sure, I can. So like in USC, since they're a football rivalry, just disbanded all of their network of clubs. I can't imagine how we'd function without our clubs. Mm-hmm. And our clubs, do so much. We have something we call the 6 C's, and I'll always forget one, but it's, current students and camaraderie and Catholic Christian spirituality. And you go down the list, right? But one of the things that is so amazing about our clubs have, I'm going to make sure I get the number right, invested at the university, $176 million that they draw from to give scholarships to students. That in the last year, and it'll continue to grow, because obviously we have an amazing investment staff that has done really well. And so $6.5 million is awarded every year to needy students from clubs all around the country. 165 clubs have their money invested. To give you some idea, Lou, you know this, we've talked about it. The scope of this is that this was a few years ago. It's going to change dramatically when the numbers come out in February. If our clubs seceded from Notre Dame, by the way, they can't, and I wouldn't suggest it, but if they did, they would be the 382nd largest endowment in all of higher ed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. And Dolly, these clubs do so many things. There's a kind of a ritual to it, right? They welcome and provide send-offs for new students. They host a UND celebration each year where there's kind of an ambassador from the university that goes out and gives kind of a state of the university and receives questions. They do service projects. They host students, summer service students, to do service in their local areas, and much, much more. That too much to mention. But
so much
about some of the other functions of the Alumni Association. ThinkND is one thing that just blows me away. Talk to us a little bit about the many dimensions of that.
Yeah, so ThinkND encompasses so much, but just for starters, that we have over 100,000 people that every day of the year receive the gospel reflection that is done by an alum, a priest, a student, a parent, a friend. Every day, a different reflection, and over 100,000 people. And those are not people that we bought lists for. Those are people that said, pick me, sign me up, I want to get it. Or my mother'd like to get it. And so, as you know, the open rate on that is amazing.
And so you also did, through ThinkND, you recently did an Advent series of sacred places at Notre Dame.
Yes, we did.
The viewership was extraordinary. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, I just love the sacred places. We've done it for 3 years. And this year, and you'd think after 3 years that you'd run out of places, but boy, there's a lot of sacred places here at Notre Dame. Little nooks, corners, benches, a view across the lake, you name it. And so in the 21, I think it's 21 days of Advent this year, we had over 425,000 views of people's sacred places, whether it be Marcus Freeman, our new football coach's God country, Notre Dame, East Nave of the Basilica, talking about what that means to him, to another student that talked about, a stained glass window, somebody else who talked about Shannon Cullinan, I remember a couple of years ago, talked about his father's bench, and every place in between. And so it's it comes out. We actually text it, but you can get it in a number of different places. And we're told, one of my favorites was this year, Doug Marsh did his sacred place. And given that he is the architect of so many of the sacred places here on campus, it was only fitting. But he left the taping and they came back in and he said, Dolly, let's keep this quiet. It's a surprise for Pam, his wife. She watches this every day. And so he was so excited. And so we have a lot of people who wait if they do one and watch it with their families. So it's a really great, and if you think about it, and we're toying with the idea, we all have sacred places, right? We talk about South Dakota. When I go back, there's this route up in the hills where my dad used to go, where he had a couple of horses, and I walk it every single time because it's just where I feel a real sense of the sacred. And everyone, I'm guessing, here has somewhere in their town, in their home, somewhere that's sacred. And so it's incumbent upon us to take Notre Dame out there, but to try to bring all of that back to Notre Dame. And so we do it with all kinds of different ways when it comes to. And so Lou, just one more. I know we might be running low on time, but I actually pulled one. So we do quarterly prayer services at the Grotto.
Yeah,
and
that's what I was going to say. This is one of my favorite moments of the entire year on campus, is to participate in these quarterly prayer services. So tell us more about that.
Well, the one that I wanted to mention is one that we did when we do every year for All Souls Day. And we have anywhere from 6,000 to 7,000 prayers submitted. And just to give people an idea, we all go down to the Grotto. And Lou, I give you a lot of credit. You are faithfully there, whether it's 100 degrees or 0. And we pray the rosary together. And then the stack of prayers is all printed out, single line, front and back. And everybody takes some of these prayers and they kneel down, they sit down, and they pray these prayers to themselves, reading every single one, so that we can pray essentially on behalf of whoever submitted that prayer to make sure their loved ones are prayed for at the Grotto. And some of them just have a name, but sometimes people say, prayers for my father, who passed away just 2 weeks ago. My father worked hard all his life and loved that I attended Notre Dame and loved going to Notre Dame football games. This next weekend will be hard because my father was in the Navy, and his favorite Notre Dame game every year was the Notre Dame Navy game. He still cheered for Notre Dame to win, but he always loved the rivalry and support between the two schools. And that was the prayer. And we looked at these and we figured that each person sends in about 8 names. And one year, we prayed for over 50,000 people by name after the rosary. Yeah. What a gift.
It's incredible. It's like I said, it's so humbling to read hundreds and hundreds of those prayers quietly on your knees before the Grotto. And so many of them are personal and touching and heart-wrenching. And you do, for the deceased, you do that around November 1st and All Souls Day, but you also begin the year with prayers for students. And then I believe around this time of year in February, I think you do prayers for the unborn.
Right. It's just prayers for life. So
prayers for life.
With focus on the unborn, but for people who have any prayers around life that they want us to pray. And we'll do that on, I think it's Monday, the 23rd, roughly. Yeah. So watch your emails and send in whatever prayers. And the fact is that we go out and ask for prayers for a certain topic, but no matter what prayer you send in, we pray it.
Yeah. And every day, correct? you have people who send in prayers through ThinkND, and tell them you have a staff person or a couple of staff
We
people.
do. And it grew so much that we have enlisted a few people who pray those prayers, and we physically take the prayers to the grotto and pray them every day. Every day. And then we leave them at the grotto as if to have a physical, tangible reminder that we're at the grotto on behalf of whoever sent the prayer.
Yeah, there's no.
And then everybody gets a response to their prayer. And sometimes during COVID, it was really hard because there were times when we had 3 times the amount of prayers, but it matters.
Yeah, I don't believe there's any alumni association in the country that does anything like this in terms of spiritually bringing Notre Dame into the kind of the faith realities of its alumni, parents, and friends. But you do more than that. Talk about ThinkND, which is a newer initiative.
Yeah. So ThinkND, I mean, you want to talk about the luck of the Irish for timing. It came out of our strategic plan. This need to focus more on the academic assets of the university, the product that the university turns out, because we have alums and friends who say, I just want access. I want to be part of it. I want to learn. I want to continue this journey. And so we launched it in September before COVID hit. And then all of a sudden, we have not only all of these people locked down in their homes, so they go online. Right now, there's over 1,000 digital assets on there. It might be, a video of something. It might be a written piece, whatever it is. And we're adding to it constantly. Mm-hmm. But the greatest part about that is that the academy here at Notre Dame, our professors and the people that work there have embraced this as an opportunity for them to take some of the things that they do out to our alumni. And so we've actually had professors, Megan Sullivan and Paul Blaschko, God in the Good Life. They literally created a small mini series and put that out there so that people could access that and be a part of it. And that continues to happen. We have won the global church with Professor Gabriel Reynolds that has the largest ThinkND community with almost 2,000 individuals who have been a part of it. Another one, Where We're Going, the Global Citizen. This was what someone wrote. And this is someone who is from Minnesota and Lebanon. They go back and forth. I watched with my parents who are in their 80s. It was mind-blowing to them to catch a glimpse of the work some people are doing in far-reaching locations, helping me promote the idea that all of our lives are interconnected. I've lived abroad all of my married life, just over 30 years. Raising children out in the world was perhaps the greatest gift I could offer them, and while always remaining mindful of the necessity of connection with my hometown and their American citizenship. And so she got a chance to watch this with her parents. And it's open to everyone. It's really, there's a lot of great material on it.
That's fantastic. Tell us a little bit about Irish Compass, which is another very important network and outreach to specifically our alumni, I believe.
Yeah, and so Irish Compass has over 30,000 on there, which would be alumni. In this case, it's only alumni because that's the limitation of what we can handle now. It continues to grow, alumni and students. And we have worked across all different organizations. So it's a chance to mentoring. So we worked with Keough, Law, Mendoza, Esteem, and other campus units to put together 2,000 mentoring pairs across campus.
All mentoring for jobs, right? And internship.
Right, and mentoring just for life to people that have questions. We recently started a business directory for businesses owned by Notre Dame alums that you can access, so that you go in and you say, hey, I need this, and this is a place you can look to. There are all kinds of opportunities for jobs, the posting of jobs, and the chance to look for jobs. So we sent something out recently about 2 different opportunities, one from the university and another through our ND Women Connect, and the open rate over 50%. So this continues to build. It's got some great steam. I think that we will continue to see more and more additions to it and more people who come here for jobs.
So it's a great, Irish Compass is a great way for Notre Dame alumni to go who may be transitioning careers and to kind of look for different options. But it's also a great way. I know we, for our division alone, we post jobs on there if
We
you
do.
want to hire Notre Dame people as well.
Yeah, and it's a great, it's a great place for career advice. We do seminars, all kinds of things like that. Not just the networking, the mentoring jobs, but all kinds of articles, experts on there to talk about like next steps and all of that. So we're really excited about it. We have an obligation. The one thing that I probably should have opened to say is how unbelievably blessed we are to be at a university that truly prizes engagement for engagement's sake.
Mhm.
And when you say that among other institutions, it's yeah, but, and no, there is no but. That it doesn't matter. We want to engage everyone in the life of the university in a way that is meaningful and necessary to them. And this is one way, is to help people find opportunities, make themselves better, and get jobs.
Mhm. We can't talk without saying something about Alumni Reunion.
Absolutely.
Talk about Alumni Reunion and how special that weekend is.
It always, Lou, you and I have had conversations about this, right? It always just amazes me that we can have over 4,000 people come back to celebrate their reunions. And what'll happen invariably is somebody will come to their 25th because it's 25, having not come to any others, and lament the fact that they didn't come to them. But people's lives are busy. But the fact that we have a draw of that many people to come back in the summer, and many of whom stay in dorms, when they also come back in the fall, sometimes once or twice, many of them, for football games. We have 80,000 every home game, but we still have a strong following for Reunion. I love Reunion.
Yeah. There's also something unique you do, and you've invited me to come and meet with the families at this, but Family Volunteer Camp.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So Family Volunteer Camp is amazing, right? We have these families, sometimes generations of families, the parents, their parents, the children. Sometimes you have a grandparent that brings a child. And so they come back here and they come on Sunday night. We start with mass and dinner. And then the family volunteers in the community, we work to line up all the different locations, whether it be the Center for the Homeless or St. Margaret's House or all kinds of places like that. Community gardens, we do a little indoor, a little bit outdoor, and the families come and they work together, sometimes 6 hours a day. And the thing that's really fascinating about it is to watch the progression of a family. So if it's their first time in particular, they get there on Sunday night and you've got the kids and some of them are early teen and they have this look like, there is no way I'm doing this. Right. And so they get up Monday morning and they're all having breakfast. They go to the South Dining Hall and then they go off to do their work and they're not happy. And then that night they get back and they all gather and the kids all gather and they have the run of campus. And then day 2. And then that night you see another side to them. And Thursday night at the closing ceremony, all of the kids, regardless of age, are all sitting at their own tables together with this bond that's like nothing you've ever seen, and all the parents are over here sitting together. And what happens is, and it sounds like something I might make up, but I had a family say after the first year, they gave the kids the opportunity to come to Family Volunteer Camp and work, or to go to Disney, and the kids chose Family Volunteer Camp. And because of that, we have about 400 individuals that do Family Volunteer Camp each year. We can only do it for 3 weeks because there's just not enough access on campus. We have to turn away as many families as we take in a lottery system, to come back and volunteer their time.
It's amazing.
Really
so there's
something.
three 1-week sessions. Yeah,
Yep.
It's very powerful to see the family bond around, our Catholic faith and service to others. You're doing so many things, Dolly, that you and the mighty small team at the Alumni Association of like 30 full-time people, and you have such ownership of volunteers, alumni, parents, and friends at every level, class level, club level, the alumni board, and all the affinity boards, et cetera. It seems to me like you're running in 1,000 different directions. Tell me what is most challenging? What is most difficult about your job, and what gives you, after all these years, the greatest fulfillment?
So people ask me all the time, what's your favorite part about the job, right? And I will tell you, it is the team that resides here at the Alumni Association. that works here, because they'll do whatever it takes, and they put in long hours. They're talented, they're creative, and you've got somebody who works with clubs, and somebody over here who works with special events, and someone over here that's in marketing. And so all of these that could be so quickly siloed, and there's not a thing that comes up, not an opportunity that doesn't present itself where everybody doesn't pitch in. It's a really beautiful group of people that make this happen. And so that's my favorite part. And then, oh, I'm telling you, COVID has been really long. It's all of you. It's our alumni, parents, and friends. It's being with you. It's hugging everyone. It's, football Fridays. It's going out to UND celebrations. It's all of that. And so it's, you're right. It's small. It's mighty. What keeps me up at night is that we often see people move on. I don't ever want anyone to leave. Not really. I got so adamant about it that for those that left that are in this area, we started a group called the Alumni of the Alumni Association, and we bring them back once a year for lunch so we can stay connected. So it's, it's challenging. There's always more great things that we want to do than we have the resources to do, but that's a good problem.
Yeah. So as we wrap things up, Dolly, any parting words of wisdom, anything that you'd like to leave in the kind of viewers' minds about the Alumni Association, about your view of the university, any parting words of wisdom?
Yeah, because you know what? We are just all of you, right? We're the Alumni Association representing you. And so my parting words would be thank you. Thank you for your unending love. Thank you for your support. Thanks for your cheering. Thanks for the kind words. Thanks for the beautiful emails. Because we're only as good as you all are. And if that's the case, dang, we're really good because you are.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Well, thank you, Dolly. Your energy is infectious. You've always been never turning down a trip to be out and visit our alumni, parents, and friends wherever, including all the global clubs and the outreach efforts and the travel program. There's so much we didn't talk about around the world. If somebody wanted to find out more about the programs or sign up for anything that you mentioned there, what website would they go to? Well,
they go to mynd.edu or send me an email. Tell me what you're interested in, and I'll get back to you.
Okay.
And in closing,
in
closing, what I also want to say is a huge thanks to my husband, Dan, and my 5 children, because without them, I never could have done this, and I never could have been as present in this job without their love and support.
Well, let me echo your thanks to them, because you're doing a phenomenal job on behalf of the university and on behalf of our alumni, parents, and friends. And I really do think that we have by far the best alumni association in the country. And many people use their alumni associations just as a vehicle to get more donations. But you have kind of kept the Alumni Association there for engagement's sake. And I'm really proud of the efforts that you guys are doing through ThinkND and ThinkND and Alumni Reunion and, the Irish Compass and so much more. So thank you, Dolly, for your leadership.
And thanks for your support.
Yeah, as we always do, let's bring our time together with a close. And we ask you all in your workplaces and homes to just join us with a prayer to Our Lady. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Thank you again, Dolly. Take care, everyone. God bless, and go Irish.